Hey, it's LoLo with Grateful Gratitude. I'm so appreciative that you're here today with us on this podcast. I hope you have a fabulous day and you feel God's love.
All right, time for another episode of Grateful Gratitude, LoLo and Lexie. And today we're talking temptation.
I think this is a good topic to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I think a lot of people think that temptation is all around them and, you know, coming after them when really temptation is in your mind. And, you know, your mind's your greatest asset, so you don't want to compromise that. But, so there are two types of minds. There's an unmanaged mind and there's a managed mind. And I kind of say there's a mind with God and there's a mind without God is kind of how I look at it more. Because if you have an unmanaged mind or an ungodly mind, you have a lot of tension. If you have a managed mind, you have more tranquility. Mm-hmm. Same with unmanaged is, you know, pressure and conflict. With a managed mind, you have peace, confidence, strength. I read a really good article that talked about the different phases of temptation. So temptation is not like, we've talked before that I don't drink, but temptation is not like Lexie bringing a bottle of wine in and sitting here and me just taking it. It doesn't happen like that. There are steps that
lead to it. Yeah.
So temptation starts internally, and we all have desires, and we all have natural desires. Like you could see someone you think is attractive, right? And you appreciate that beauty. But if you take that attraction and you turn it into an action, then you're committing temptation. So
the sin.
The sin. So it's like when temptation runs amok, because we're all going to have temptation within us. So it's not, a desire is not bad until you turn it into a runaway desire. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Well, and I think a lot of people, because I don't want to forget this point, I used to get freaked out when people would say, you know, the devil tempts you or the enemy tempts you. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is something we're always going to run from, you know, and it's scary. The devil's always tempting us. But it is the devil. But if you're strong in your faith and strong in your mind, then you're not getting led to that temptation or those levels of temptation, because it goes hand in hand as far as if your mind is strong, then your faith is strong. And they always say, as long as you're strong in your faith, the enemy won't, it won't affect you.
If you prepare for that temptation.
Right.
If you know, like you guys said, you're going to be tempted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's natural.
It's going to happen. You've got to be prepared for it.
Right. Well, and I talked at my commercial today. I don't know if you were there when I did my commercial or not, but you remember the movie Super Size Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, where the guy was perfectly healthy and fit, and he went to McDonald's every single day.
30 days.
30 days, every meal.
Yeah, and ate
it was an experiment.
Junk food. And by the end of the 30 days, his results were all over the place. He felt miserable. He looked miserable. He gained so mumuch weight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
By the way, I lived that life for about 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm not exaggerating. But yeah, so Super Size Me. Good movie.
But my correlation with that is it's the same with your mind. So if you're watching reality TV,
what are you feeding it?
You're reading gossip magazines.
You're sitting on Instagram.
You're constantly buried in social media, and you're watching the news 24/7. You're feeding that same food that he put in his body in your mind.
Well, let me add something else too: the people you choose to be around.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And so, why would you want to tear yourself down with all that garbage? Because, you know, the old saying, garbage in, garbage out, when computers first came out, you know, you can put anything in you want, but if you put garbage in, garbage is going to come out of it in your statistics and your numbers.
Right.
And it's the same thing. So you want to feed your mind to keep it, to know that, well, I can appreciate that person's beauty and physical attractiveness. It doesn't mean I have to have an affair with that person.
Right.
You know? That's to make it very simple. And after it starts internally, next will come doubt. You'll start doubting if God knows what's best for you. And that's how Satan works on you. Like, oh, you know, come on, you know, does he really want you to not have this? You know, that starts to go on.
And it's not that bad. Yeah.
Well, it can. People have different levels of doubt. You know, it could just be yourself overthinking things.
Oh, no, I know. I'm saying, but in your mind, you're saying, like, it's not that bad. It's fine, you know.
Yes. But
God
then you rationalize it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then too, you start overthinking things so much, and then that's when
then you don't know what to.
Yeah, and then once you're doubting, then the deception replaces what God has already taught you and promised you.
It's hard to get back from that.
Yeah, just like, you've worked so hard, you deserve that new Mercedes. You really should have that. When I'm an overspender, I can't afford that car, so why accept that temptation?
That's a great example, and it's probably the best example of my life is when I was in radio. You get paid to do appearances on weekends, and I would turn down money if it was to stand at a car dealership, because I knew that if I stood at a car dealership for 2 hours, there's a better than zero chance I'm going to end up buying a new car.
Right.
But see, and I think too, you got to recognize. I can tell you right now, I can't drink. I can't spend. I mean, I know I have problems with overspending. I have problems with overeating. I've constantly fought overeating my life. And I just don't prefer to be in a situation where there's alcohol, because I know those are 3 things that I wrestle with. So it's better to recognize that. Do you guys know certain things that, obviously car dealerships.
The car dealerships, got to avoid those.
Yeah.
Well, I think just like in my situation, my age, Ty and I were so young, getting married and having kids and stuff, that we find like all of our friends are getting married and stuff now. But, sometimes we wouldn't go out with certain friends and stuff because we knew that there'd be things there that we weren't interested in participating in. And we just didn't want to get into that situation. Yeah. And then there's times where we do just, just go along with things, and we still are able to keep from any temptation, but we know, we know beforehand, I think. And like you said, being prepared before.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and then also, because once you've done the deception, then comes the disobedience. Or you go ahead and sign for that car.
And it doesn't seem as bad at that point because you've gone to that level.
Right. But then you just start thinking about it, and then you realize that you've been defeated and that you have gone through with the temptation. And, that defeat can be addiction. It could be financial ruin, an affair.
Or a broken promise or anything. Yeah.
And once again, when you go back to and you think about the temptations that you gave into, how many of them were worth it?
None.
No, it's just instant gratification that immediately goes away.
Right. And that's the worst thing.
And when you say immediately, you're talking immediately.
And then the hurt is way harder.
And then you got the car payments, or you've got whatever, and you start thinking about that, because you're free to choose, but you're not free from the consequences of what you choose.
Yeah. Yep. That's great. Say that one more time.
You're free to choose, but you're not free of the consequences from what you chose.
That's great.
I like that.
So I think the best thing that we can do to help people, if they have trouble with temptations, is to always remember that everybody has temptations. Jesus had temptations.
Don't feel guilty about having temptations. Just know how to deal with them.
That's part of your normal, healthy mind.
Yep.
Your mind is built that way. It's just where you go from there with it.
And if you know other people who battle those demons and have temptations, try your best not to put them in situations where they have to deal with it.
Right. Friends,
and the great sports example, Josh Hamilton for the Rangers, who was a drug addict and alcoholic. When a baseball team, and it seems to now, whenever a baseball team wins anything, they have a champagne celebration.
Yeah, champagne showers. Yep.
Well, the Rangers, knowing that Josh Hamilton battled that, they avoided that. They
awesome.
celebrated.
And I'm sure he's eternally grateful for that.
Maybe he is, maybe he's not.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, but at the end of the day, I'm sure he is, and I'm sure his family is.
It was a great gesture.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that only came from a good place.
It's better than them doing it around him, and then him end up doing it and then feeling bad for it. So.
And I think the other thing real quick is to feed on the truth. Like, okay, so I don't need to put more food in my body just to be eating, because my body's nourished. Why do I need to overeat that? Or
you just need fuel for it.
Or
you don't need to overindulge.
I've got a car that works just fine.
Absolutely.
Why do I need to get this new car?
Yeah.
And going back, Lexie learned, Wes's car was the BMW, and she learned to drive, and in high school she drove a BMW. Now, that was not because it was a status thing that we had to. That happened to be the car Wes
Yeah, it
had.
was very good, like, just a coincidence that
But
I got to drive that.
Since that car, we have moved on to Toyotas, you know, and I drive a RAV4, and I love my RAV4. Or you know,
And it's also nice to have half the price of a car payment, too.
But I'm grateful that I have a car that runs and gets me places.
And it's a nice car.
Lexie and I are sharing right now, and I see how burdened that can be. And so I'm just grateful I have what I have. I don't have to go have something better, is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And last thing, remember that it's a long-term goal, not a short-term goal. Temptation, and when you go through temptation, is such a instant gratification, like Lexie and you talked about, Mark, that, you know, it's just not.
It's not worth it.
No.
The hurt is 20 times worse than
It's not.
the instant gratification that lasts like 5 seconds.
So maybe if people think about those 4 phases and they can halt them a little bit earlier, and don't blame yourself if you've been tempted and failed. You got a new chance to start over.
Absolutely.
It doesn't define you.
What's your website?
GratefulGratitude11.com.
GratefulGratitude11.com.
Yep.
All right. You can find all sorts of things over there.
Yep. All kinds of things.